Everybody wants big wheels la, turbo la, this la, that la. Let me explain to you why the Toyota Corolla Altis G is actually all you really need. If you want a car to last through a nuclear holocaust, this might very well be your best bet, because under the bonnet, there is no newfangled hybrid or turbo or whatever. Instead, you find a 1.8-litre naturally aspirated four-cylinder producing 129 PS and 172 Newton meters of torque. That power goes to the front wheels via a CVT automatic transmission, replete with paddle shifters behind the steering wheel for more granular control. This is a time-tested setup which promises to be both efficient and reliable while providing all the performance that you really need. Same thing with the design. People talk about body kits la, this la, that la. Not necessary. The Corolla G proves the fact that if you just have a base design that is handsome and well considered and well proportioned, it will age like fine wine. This car was updated about a year ago to include a slightly revised front face with a mesh style grille, some updated chrome, while still retaining things like LED fog lights, LED headlights replete with automatic LED high beam. You still get 17-inch alloy wheels replete with a diamond cut finish on the front, wrapped in Dunlop SP Sport Max tires. You still get keyless entry on both front doors, and you get this lovely sort of three-box saloon design which looks very traditional while still looking bang up to date. This car doesn't look like it's aged at all. And again, that is down to simple evergreen design. And at the back, it is broadly the same affair. Full LED taillights replete with LED indicators, a mildly revised rear bumper, a little bit of chrome but not too much, and more importantly, all the practicality that you need from a family saloon. Because this boot is absolutely cavernous for a vehicle of this size, and you can get it with useful accessories such as a plastic boot liner in order to make this back end a little bit easier to clean out should it get mucky. On top of that, if you need even more space, the rear seats fold 60/40 for added practicality, making this an incredibly practical family saloon, proving that you do not need anything more than this. Now, the interior of the Corolla Altis is again a matter of pretty good. All the materials that you can touch and feel all feel very nice and padded, replete with stitching up here and stitching on the door cards. This is also nice and soft, and everywhere else just feels nice and sturdy and solid, like it's going to last the test of time. Even surfaces like this are soft touch, even though there's really no need for them to be. The only piece of hard touch plastic up here is over here, which is fine because you're never really going to touch that. Beyond that, all the controls in here also feel very well put together. These switches, for example, feel nice and sturdy and nice and chunky to use. All the buttons feel nice and reassuring. Even the electronic parking brake buttons down here also feel nice to use. And that's before we get onto this car's ergonomics, because the driver's seat is powered, the passenger seat is not. But there is plenty of adjustment in here, including for things like height, angle adjustment, and of course your seat back and so on and so forth. And of course the steering wheel is also adjustable for reach and rake, which means that it's very easy to get into a comfortable driving position. Now, one of the things that I like about this car is some of the technology. So for starters, we actually have an electrochromic rearview mirror here, which is nice to see. Given the fact that this car is well under 150,000 ringgit, it's nice to see that features like this are included, because some cars more expensive than this don't get that, like the GR Corolla. And then of course there is the fact that you have a fully digital instrument cluster up front, a first for the Corolla, and it takes on from the previously semi-digital instrument cluster that we got. Now, one of the things I like about this is because in typical Toyota fashion, it's very, very easy to get into all the information that you need. It's very customizable with 3 zones for you to choose from in order to display a variety of different information. And more importantly, because this was completely unnecessary, they've actually worked in some very cool animations for when you go in and out of sport mode. The graphics and the refresh rate on this is as good as what we've seen from Ford vehicles, which are, what, twice the price of one of these? And so the fact they're willing to include that in something as pedestrian as a Corolla is just really good attention to detail. The same goes for this head unit, because yes, it looks like one of those things that you find from a local OEM. Fine, I'll grant you that much. However, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are both wireless, although the USB port does live here if you want a wired connection. But more importantly, if you do use a wireless connection, it is very, very reliable. It boots up very quickly, it refreshes quickly, and it just works really well. On top of that, this surface, I know I'm getting a bit nerdy here, but the surface of this screen also doesn't seem to attract that many fingerprints, weirdly. Compared to this surface here, for example, this is much better to use. Now, in addition to this, there's also a wireless charging pad down here, which is always nice to see. There are a couple of cup holders, a decently sized center console bin, replete with a 12-volt socket and USB-C port. There's a decently sized glove box here, which even opens with a nice sort of soft damp effect to it. Decently sized door bins, big enough for liter-sized bottles, as well as some space behind that for even more random flotsam. And of course, you get those paddle shifters that I mentioned earlier. All of this just works really well. So what more do you want? And it's the same story in the back of this Corolla, because with the front seats that are in my driving position, about 170 centimeters, I have a pretty good amount of knee room and a pretty decent amount of headroom despite that sloping roofline. And the floor is nice and deep, which means that even sat like this, I still have decent under-thigh support. The seat base is quite long, which means that if I stretch out a little bit, I have very good under-thigh support. I have a deployable center armrest here, replete with a couple of cup holders, but of course in typical Toyota fashion, it just flops. I also have ISOFIX mounts. All the material quality back here is just as good as it is in the front. I've got pockets behind the rear seats, a couple of air conditioning vents, decently sized door bins, big enough for a 500 milliliter size bottle perhaps, as well as a small pocket up here for other smaller items. Now, if there is one thing I'd like to whinge about back here is the fact that there are no USB ports. If I want to plug in a device or charge something, I'm reliant on what's going on in that sort of center console bin. But aside from that, life back here is pretty good. And if you have rear-mounted child seats, or rear-facing child seats rather, you will find that the ISOFIX tether points are very easy to find, and the doors open quite wide, which means getting the seat into the car shouldn't be too much of a problem, although the rear of the front seats do kind of curve back quite a bit, and so there is that risk of pushing up against the backs of the front seats. However, the Toyota Corolla is a nameplate that has been around for a very, very long time, and for decades, in fact, it was the de facto family car, which means that this car is just as practical as you'd expect it to be. But what truly surprises is what it's like from the driver's seat, because believe it or not, there's actually something going on in this car. Now, the reason why I say that is because the Toyota Corolla is built off of the TNGA, or Toyota New Global Architecture platform. Now, one of the fancy things about this platform is that in addition to it being incredibly modular, which means that you can make SUVs or saloons or hatchbacks or estate cars or anything in between for that matter, the other great thing about this chassis is that it's resulted in some really, really great cars to drive. Firstly, there's been a special emphasis paid to torsional rigidity, ensuring that there is little to no chassis flex, ensuring that these cars feel absolutely excellent to drive. In addition to that, there is something within this platform that makes the steering in most, if not all, TNGA vehicles feel so much more connected and so much more communicative, which makes it just absolutely fantastic to drive. And again, bearing in mind, this is a Corolla. This is a family car. In fact, they don't get much more family car than a Toyota Corolla, which means that this is meant to be the practical, everyday family car, and yet somehow, to the driver, it is also incredibly rewarding to drive. Now, of course, there is a Corolla GR Sport for those who want to dial that up to 11, and I've no doubt that that car will be slightly better to drive. It'll be a bit peppier, it'll be even a bit more rigid, and perhaps be a little bit more attentive from behind the wheel. But even in this, the cooking variant, the normal vanilla run-of-the-mill model, it's still incredibly fun to drive, which is nuts because it's a Corolla. It's not supposed to be fun. That's not supposed to be the point, and yet here it is. Now, going back to the variety of things that make a Corolla a Corolla. Firstly, there is the comfort. So even though this car is very good to drive, thanks to that incredibly rigid chassis, the suspension isn't busy trying to deal with body roll because there isn't really all that much of it. Instead, the car just sort of sorts itself out while the suspension provides an adequate amount of dampening should you suddenly hit a pothole or suddenly find yourself through some twisty curves. The body doesn't lean, but the suspension never crashes. Even in PJ, no matter how hard I hit the potholes, it just sort of soaks it up and deals with it, which is exactly what you want in a family car. And then there is the matter of refinement. Now, Toyota has resisted what all the Chinese car makers have done, which is put acoustic glass all over the place. Instead, there's only acoustic glass in the windscreen. Everything around the rest of the cabin is just your typical single pane glass. And yet, despite that, in terms of wind noise, there is almost none at all, at least not until you creep well past the national speed limit. And in terms of road noise, these Dunlop SP Sport Max tires are not exactly the quietest rubber in the world, but they do a pretty decent job at keeping life in here in check, which means that you can very easily cover miles in this car without even the mildest bit of concern. And it doesn't matter if you find yourself stuck in a traffic jam, if you find yourself on an open motorway, this car will support you with the Toyota Safety Sense suite of active safety features. Now, this car falls slightly short of level 2.5 semi-autonomy, but it still has things like lane centering assist, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, that 360 cam with the typical Toyota nonsense where it circles the car many times to try and make you dizzy. It also comes with autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian cyclist detection, as well as adaptive cruise control with traffic jam assist, which means that, again, it doesn't matter if you're munching miles or if you're just trying to get home. Either way, the car will support you, making driving the Toyota Corolla an absolutely effortless affair. Now, of course, I will admit that if you want a car with a little bit more pep, then naturally the Honda Civic will offer you a little bit more torque, and it will feel like the car has better get up and go. In terms of overtaking, this car will get there eventually. It's not about it sort of snapping off the line. It just sort of does its business in a very gentle and predictable manner, in a reliable manner, in the sort of manner that it will continue to do for the next 25 to 45 years if you take care of it. And of course, on the other hand, if you do think that this car is a little bit too expensive, then of course there is also the Proton S70, which is a little bit smaller in every measurable way, but it also comes with 1.5 litre turbocharged 3-cylinder, which gives that car a lot more pep in its step. But overall, what I'm trying to say here is I think that everybody's been overlooking the Toyota Corolla at their own disadvantage. This is an excellent car, and every time I drive one, it just reminds me that actually this is all anyone ever really needs. It's practical enough, it drives fantastically, it's incredibly efficient, it's very safe, and because it's a Toyota, it should last longer than you. And so that concludes our review of the Toyota Corolla G, the cooking variant. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon to notified every time we make a new upload. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and if you follow the links below, you can also join our new WhatsApp channel. Thank you so much for watching. We will catch you in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and jangan bodoh.